Maxine Hong Kingston's parents, Tom Hong and Ling Yang Chu, married while they lived in China. Her father, Tom, was a scholar, and her mother was a midwife. Her father moved to New York City to work and provide for his family back in China. He worked at a laundry for 15 years before his wife came over. As soon as she arrived, they moved to Stockton, California, where they worked in a laundry and managed a gambling house. It was here in Stockton that Maxine Hong Kingston was born on October 27, 1940. She was named Maxine after a lucky blonde gambler from her father's work. In school, Maxine refused to speak, and she ended up failing kindergarten. This was because her mother emphasized stories about her Chinese heritage, and her first language was Say Yup, a Chinese dialect. Her interest in writing began young, as she wanted to write down all of her mother's stories and began writing poetry in the 4th grade. She attended college at the University of California at Berkeley, and she received 11 scholarships to get into the school. She began as an engineering major, but switched to English literature. While she was at school, she served as the night editor for the Daily Californian. She graduated in 1962 with her bachelor's and married her classmate, Earl Kingston. In 1964, she gave birth to their first and only son, Joseph. In 1965, Maxine Kingston received her teaching certificate, and she taught at high school in Hayward, California. A few years later, the family ended up moving to Hawaii. They were unhappy with the social turmoil in the U.S. and were planning on moving to Japan. At a stopover on the way to Japan, the Kingstons decided that Hawaii would be their new home. They taught at many schools, such as Kahuku High School, Kahaluu Drop-In School, Honolulu Business College, and Kailua High School. While she was there, Maxine Hong Kingston was also writing. She published a few things in magazines and the New York Times, and later gathered these publishings to put together Woman Warrior. She published Woman Warrior in 1976, and it won the National Book Critics Circle Award for Nonfiction, Time Magazine's Top 10 Nonfiction Works of All Time, Mademoiselle Magazine Award, and she was named Living Treasure of Hawaii. In 1981, she published Chinamen, and it won American Book Award for Nonfiction, Guggenheim Fellow, and the Hawaii Award for Literature. In 1988, she published Tripmaster Monkey, his fake book, and she won the Penn West Award and California Governor's Art Award. She was also inducted into the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and has received the National Humanities Medal. Kingston joined the faculty at the University of California at Berkeley in 1990. There, she was renowned for her interesting teaching style, as she had been known to include lessons about Zen meditation when she was teaching Western literature. Just as she did in each of her books, Kingston used both her ancestry and her American upbringing to find a way of understanding the stories she was told, or in this case, was telling to her students. She is currently a visiting professor in Hawaii, Michigan, and California, but spends most of her time working on her upcoming publication. I will now recreate an interview between John Whalenbridge, Charles Johnson, and our girl, Maxine Hong Kingston. Hi, I'm John Whalenbridge. I'd like to start with a question for Charles Johnson. What is your attitude about cross-representation, about a writer of one race and gender representing another race or gender? How do you approach, say, the intimate construction of a female character, such as Faith in Faith in the Good Thing, especially such intimate, gender-specific experiences as sex? I tend to be very cautious with sexual descriptions because, as we know, sex is a powerful subject. It's like playing with fire, a bomb that can blow up on you if you're not careful. But I want to know what Maxine says. When I wrote Whitman Ah Sing, I was like seeing that as a big artistic challenge for myself. I saw my career like 40 years before as being selfish, not ethnocentric, but egocentric, just writing from a woman's point of view. And if I could write a male character, then it would be a great artistic breakthrough. And I believe I was seeing myself as such a limited person, and as a limited writer, if I could only stay within the bounds of the feminine, and because there's the other half of existence, and I'm not even trying to create male fiction characters. Actually, the struggle started when I was writing Chinamen, and one of the ways that I approached this was to give myself permission. I had to have faith that any one of us is free to be looked at from the point of view of any other human being on this earth. And as I struggled against the critical discourse in which, that you have no right to presume that you can inhabit another person's body and mind, so I thought, well, I'm not going to listen to that. It's restricting my freedom. It's almost like an out-of-body experience. What we can do is fly out of our own body and inhabit the body of somebody of our own race and class and gender. That's already very magical. We can choose any person that we can write from their insight. And so if I could do that with a Chinese-American woman, why can't I do that with anybody? And even at Berkeley, in my writing classes as a teacher, I just gave them permission, You, white person, you go ahead and write about black people. I give you permission to do that. I don't care what your background is. Later in the interview, it reminds me of something a great writer I heard say once. Well, I didn't hear it. Someone told me about it. But Maxine Hong Kingston once said, diversity is looking at the person most different from you and seeing yourself. Maxine doesn't remember saying this, but Sandra Cisneros said she said it, and she wouldn't lie. Except I can't remember saying it. Take credit, it's a great line. It doesn't matter, we have it down as text now. But I wanted to ask Maxine, if I could, about your understanding of the 60s in terms of race in this sense, because you have some commentary on this in Trip Master Monkey, where you have Whitman Ah Sing as a critical reader of culture. Now you've got beat ancestors in your work. Whitman has beat bohemian ancestors, but it's not uncritical, and he hits the pause button now and then and has to ask, for example, what Kerouac would say about an old Chinese man. What was your line about that? Hey there, you little Chinese man, you're so beautiful. You are just wow. With your little tinkling feet. I think that we people who are non-black, non-white, we have a very special sight because the whole discussion during the 60s was about black and white. And from our point of view, with where am I in this? And the answer was just like so complicated because you have to make your place in it. You know that the question is not black and white. It's not only black and white. And so it's making your own place, but also making your vision known. And it's a vision of non-duality. Whitman and I, we were aware, yes, of the Beatles and Woodstock and the Civil Rights Movement. And more. And Vietnam, and then of course I was there in Berkeley, and so there's that Berkeley experience, which is local but global all at once. So here's Whitman, he's critical of all of it. Jack Kerouac doesn't have the true vision. He knows that the Beatles do not have the true vision. But I think that Asian American writers, and also Asian Americans, generally did look to the blacks for the solution. Well, they're out there, and Martin Luther King Jr., he was talking about the beloved community, and I knew that the beloved community included us, and I think what we saw was a bigger picture, and I knew what side I was on. The artistic challenge was to be able to write the larger work. I don't like it when critics label my work Asian American, or worse than that, it's Chinese. She's written about China. I'm writing America, and when they put this China label on it, it means that they have denied what they have read. And they say, what you have written is not true of us, it's true of you Chinese people, and those people over there, but we're all right over here. And this happened especially with feminism, and I come out so strong for feminism, and everybody said, and the critics say, well, look at the way they treat women over there in China. No, I'm talking about the way we're treating women right here. That concludes the interview portion of the project. Hope you guys enjoyed learning about Maxine Hong Kingston.